Ready to drive your career, not just ride along? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm Simone E. Morris, your host and career strategist, here to give you the roadmap. Each week, we're cutting through the noise with strategies, stories, and insights to get you back in control. Your career clarity starts right here. Welcome to this week's episode of the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm super excited to go global and invite to the show Kai-Nneka Townsend. She is a leadership, resilience, and burnout consultant who helps leaders and teams achieve sustainable success without sacrificing their well-being. I'm all about that. Now, with a career that spans international development, public health, and corporate leadership, she brings a rare blend of lived experiences, cultural insight, and strategic clarity. As the founder of Rise by KCL, she now works with high-pressure industries like finance, tech, and consulting to reduce stress-related absences, I bet there's a lot of those in these times, improve retention, and build resilient leadership cultures. Kai-Nneka, welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast.
Ooh, thank you. What a warm welcome and what an introduction. I'm so excited to
Yes.
be here.
Yes, I'm excited to learn more about you because undoubtedly, when I sit in the host chair, I learn more about people than I already know. So, tell me, what did you want to be when you were growing up?
For me, growing up, I wanted to be a diplomat. I
Ah,
actually wanted to be in the driver's seat, so to speak, of leading on representing a country, my country, and being able to go to different lands and languages. I was always excited about learning different cultures and languages. So being a diplomat for me seemed really, really exciting at the time.
yeah.
And so, when you
It sounds
introduce,
exciting.
sorry?
It sounds exciting.
Oh my gosh, when you introduced me and spoke about the international development piece, that was a big part of the, as a child, dreaming to how could we rise to the occasion and get locked into a role that helps you to represent your country. You're doing a bit of traveling and learning different languages and cultures, and that just seemed exciting to me.
Well, it still sounds exciting to me. So, what happened with that? Did you become a diplomat and then you shift careers, or what happened with that dream?
So I did become a diplomat, but I think what was in it for me that I was really attracted to, as I said, learning different languages and cultures, yes, but there was something about being able to help people at an international level. So I started with that thought, and there have been so many pivots in my life. I
Mm,
mean, I switched from that to say I'm actually going to do tourism. So I'm originally from Jamaica, and tourism is such a big thing. And I said I'm going to do a degree in tourism. And
nice.
so I went for that and got my degree in tourism, and it got me to travel. So I left Jamaica, went to the Bahamas, did my studies there, and that was a really important part of the exposure for me of living at that young age in a different country, getting to know other people. So that was part of the original journey.
Mm.
Um, but not yet a diplomat.
Ah, okay, okay. So in the beginning, you talked about, sort of wanting to be in the driver's seat. As you think about your career journey, I know now you are in the entrepreneurial world with
Yeah.
your business. When did you realize that you were in the driver's seat for your career?
So for me, that was when I landed what at the time was a job in the rail industry in the UK. So, I said I wanted to be a diplomat when I started out. I shifted the thought of tourism, did a degree in tourism. Then I switched back to go to international studies. So I did my master's in Mexico in
Wow.
development of the Latin America and the Caribbean. And that was another zig. But when I left, it was really difficult to land a job in international development. And I was all about, okay, what opportunities are there? What skills do I have that I can use? And at the time, coming from a tourism degree background, there's a lot about customer service.
Hmm.
So I landed a job in the UK in a customer service role. And when I got there, I remember thinking, this is just a start. This is just a start. So immediately I was already looking to see what could I do next. I could be a station manager, I could be this, I could be that. I really started to look beyond the, okay, I'm in this role, but this is a starting place. So that for me was an early indication of I can be in the driver's seat of my role. And when it really, really hit was I left being on the front lines to a role in the head office. And at the time, many of my colleagues were laughing because you're like, ha ha ha, you're going for a role where the pay is a little bit less and you're not going to have as much opportunity to do overtime. But you know what I had? I had visibility.
Ah,
I had the visibility and air of the senior leadership. And so that then really started my journey in the industry of just going up the ranks. And I recognized that, yes, I was in the driver's seat. I could determine and shape my own career because it was all about thinking strategically. Even though it was a lateral move, it was a move that was going to help me to go vertical. So that was my early days of knowing I could be in the driver's seat.
I love that. I love that. So what I'm noticing is that you have moved from country to country, and that's a big deal. So talk
Yes.
to us about the benefits of thinking internationally and saying yes to opportunities, because you're saying yes to the Bahamas, yes to the UK and moving
Yeah.
around in your career. And those are big cultural adjustments. So talk to us about what you've learned from moving from country to country and how that has benefited you in your career.
Yeah. It's for me a deeper appreciation of different perspectives.
Mm,
And just a nuanced way of thinking about even life and career itself. So my moves were intentional. I was always looking for the next opportunity to learn a new language, learn a new culture through various opportunities, whether that be work, study, or even leisure.
hmm.
So those moves for me were very intentional, but what I didn't realize is just how much I was learning about taking risks
Yeah.
that then paid off in opportunities, but also being more culturally aware and being aware of the fact that for you to be able to survive or even thrive in a space, you have got to be able to have the ability to adapt.
Yes.
And so I learned how to adapt quite quickly. And, we've heard the term about assimilation, right?
Mhm.
There's a little bit of assimilation going on. And what I had to then do, which is an important lesson, is even while you're assimilating, how do you lead and grow without losing yourself? Because it's important
Yes.
to acknowledge the differences that are around you, but how can you make sure that you still remain authentically you? And why this was so important is that when you start to lose yourself, when you're having to fit into all these different boxes, it can become quite stressful.
Yeah,
It,
yeah,
it can
yeah.
become quite high stress. So the lessons I learned were really about adaptability and then moving from adaptability to also understand while you're adapting, how do you still retain the sense of who you are? Because that's really important.
Well, I'm curious about how do you amplify your voice and maintain your unique identity, authenticity. You're in rooms, you've got that visibility and access to the C-suite or senior leaders. What are your tips, let me say, that you can share with the audience where you can be yes and yes. Yeah, you can be appreciative of the culture, but you can also still bring your unique self, your authentic self to the work.
Yeah. And I like that question. There are two layers to that. You spoke about, being able to be visible to the C-suite, the senior leaders, and that whole matter of still being yourself. And that doesn't just apply to the senior leadership interaction, but just to everyone. And I think if I lean into the whole matter of how we interact with senior leaders, at the end of the day, whatever her leader says that we're still human. We're still human
Yeah, yeah.
beings. And if you think about that, then what you want to do is remain curious. trying to understand and learn who they are, what's important to them. Because when you do that, it makes the conversations that you have with them that much easier. And that's what I had to do. So I remember, my own manager at the time saying, you've done all these things because he's constantly saying in my one-to-one meetings, do this, do that. I'd do it and he'd be like, okay, but you haven't done this. Do this now. I got so annoyed. I was like, come on, I cannot get everything right for this person. And then one day I showed up, I was ready for him. I had my little list. I did this, I did that. And he's like, oh my God, I have nothing else to say to you, but you know what? There's one more. You need to raise your visibility. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, that was the best advice he'd given to me. I
Mm,
walked away, said, I'm going to prove to you, I'm going to raise my visibility. And so I started to talk to senior leaders. And at the time, I looked after a large group of stations. So I started to bring them on trips and say, hey, this is what we're doing, meet the team, etc. And they loved it because it
mm,
allowed them to be able to interact with the frontline staff, which was one of the goals coming out of the employee survey of
yes.
them having that touch point. So I learned what was important to them and I was serving them in that way. And it opened the opportunity for me to build relationship because I was treating this as I know, I understand who you are. I understand what's important to you. And this is going to be a win-win. I'm going to build that relationship because you know what? When you get to know me and I get to know you, when opportunities come, I'm going to be top of mind.
All
And that's
right.
exactly what happened. And it happened organically. So, with that, that's a visibility. Really understand what's important to them. Remember that they're human beings too and treat them as such. And then, in terms of authenticity, when people talk about showing up at your whole self at work, let's be real, that's not a thing. Because some of us have some
80%,
tendencies that are rather best left
75%.
outside the
Yeah.
workplace.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's really being able to show up in a way that is, yes, it's a version of yourself, but bearing in mind that you're leaving space for others as well to show up as who they are. So
Mm,
it's a bit of a give and take. I'm not hiding who I am, but I'm making sure that even as I am showing up, I'm also making room for you. There's room for everyone. And
mhm.
that can look like I'm someone, for example, who I'm not soft-spoken, as my leaders would say, you're no wallflower. But that was me. I had to learn that I didn't always have to be that voice in the room, right? I didn't always have to speak up when things were, no, that's not right. There were times I had to pick my battles.
Yeah.
There were times where I learned to speak up and go, can we think about this differently? Use different language. And there are times where I had to remain silent to allow the space for others. So there's that give and take with showing up authentically, where you can be yourself, but remember to always also make room for others. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm loving it. I'm putting on my inclusion hat in the work that I do in creating an inclusive workplace, and that's that
Yeah.
yes and yes, and it makes so much sense to me about. Well, there's a couple things that come up for me, Kanika. Is the first thing is, it seems to me, we are over 200 podcast episodes in, and so
Yeah.
based
Well done. Congratulations, by the way.
yeah, thank you. That, the book and all that, there's a deep focus on career advancement and the driver's
Yeah.
seat. And it seems to me, based on what you're saying in today's episode, that you have to be a student in your career. You have to be a student and you're always learning and growing. That's one. And I love the word adaptability. Adaptability, flexibility, really being able to allow yourself to grow. And even if there's some discomfort and dancing with that discomfort, it's
Yes.
still a transformative process. So I love the message of being yourself and leaving room for others to be themselves as well as leaders.
Exactly. Exactly. You have definitely crafted it so beautifully. Put it in the best words, but absolutely in agreement with you there.
Yes. So tell me, I'm always curious about people's formula for owning their careers. What is your formula for owning your career? Like, what are the key ingredients,
Hmm.
Kainika, that you believe based on your body of work, your lived experiences
Yeah.
that are important to be able to be in the driver's seat for your career and to advance or thrive in your career?
Yeah. So that's an interesting one because I'm going to start by saying, dispelling the myth that there's a formula.
Hmm.
I'm going to
Okay.
say
Okay.
there's no one, because there's no one formula for success. Um, I think the important thing, if I am going to say there is something to think about or to guide listeners on, there are three key things. One is actually defining success for yourself. So
Mm,
not by the measure of anyone else, but by culture, your family, work, whatever. What does success look like
yeah.
and mean for you? And having clarity on that is really important. So clarity on your definition of success, that's where you should start. I think the second one is around boundaries.
Mm,
So if you're then clear on this is what success looks like for me, this is what's really important, how are you going to protect that? So I always talk about the fact that your time and energy are limited resources. So you have to look at how you are really utilizing those two things to achieve the very things that are important to you. So, what are the boundaries that you need to have in place about how your time and energy is protected, where you're spending time, who you're spending time with? Are the things that the long list to do this you have, how many of those are really your actions or the actions of someone else
yeah.
instructing you to do them? And then the last thing is really about that visibility. So, if you're getting work done and nobody knows, then nobody knows that you can do good work. So you've got to find a way to make sure that your work is known to the right people.
That's right.
I'm not talking about being obnoxious and being that person in the meeting that always has to be the I did that. No. Again, just going back to, who are the persons that really need to know what you're doing? And therefore, finding the spaces. Is it that in meetings when you're, whether it be regular team meetings and you're giving an update, you're not just talking about what you've done, but the impact of that on achieving the priorities of the team or the business.
Mm,
You have to be able to speak to that. Keep a record of your successes. Sometimes, we're really doing well and we're so busy ticking off a list, we forget to pause and say, hey, this is either progress or a win. Let me make a note of that. Because then you can do two things with that. You can either in your reviews be able to speak to those successes because you have the record of it, or you can even start to talk about them in opportunities like speaking engagements,
mhm.
looking for opportunities to present, opportunities to create thought leadership on platforms like LinkedIn, etc. You really have to be intentional about raising your visibility, but be prepared before you raise that visibility and make sure that you really have, what you notice that you want to talk about and who it is that it's important to be able to hear what you're talking about. So the clarity on what success means for you, the boundaries to protect being able to go after that, and the visibility, raising the visibility, shining a light on the work you're doing. And I tell you why the boundaries part is important. I talk about resilience, that's where people fall down. They're trying to do it all and don't recognize that you have to put the boundaries in place to protect your time and energy so you can sustainably go after the things that are important to you and achieve your success.
Mm. I am in alignment with all that you've said. When you talked about celebrating your success, I call it tooting your own horn. So, beep, beep, here I am, and not forgetting, your contributions, your values, what you bring to the table. So I loved co-sign everything that you're saying. And what I was thinking to myself, Kai-Nneka, was, man, I wish I knew her when I first started my career in corporate America because these are things that I have learned along the way.
Yeah.
But a lot of people who get out of school, you don't get that knowledge, especially
Yeah.
that visibility one, and that boundary one, you don't get that message. And so you go through a bumbling and stumbling through your career until you find your footing and say, yeah, this is my strategic vision for my career. And okay, I got to get some boundaries. And so you're doing a bit of catch up. I wish that
Yeah.
my younger self had heard that message. And my hope is that listeners across the world hearing this message will take note and apply these tips to your career.
Absolutely. I love it.
Yeah. So tell me, two things come up for me here is one is where does the wisdom, I'm a fellow Jamaican, so I know about the pivot. I am deeply committed to the pivot. So tell me, where does the wisdom come from? Because there's a assertiveness, there's a confidence that is demonstrated as you talk about your journey and the decisions that you've made. There's a level of, I'm thinking maturity to leave Jamaica. I remember when I left Jamaica, that was when I was 9 years old, a very different time,
Yeah.
but there was a big difference between countries for me and assimilating or getting grounded in the new place to feel welcome. So tell me, where does your wisdom and confidence come from, where it
Yeah.
stays with you throughout your career?
I really love the question. And as a fellow Jamaican, oh, Jamaicans were always bold and confident with everything, I promise.
That's right. One love.
But um, but just thinking about that, I think there are three places that it comes from. And I'm conscious that, this is an audience made up of different people and different beliefs and so on. So I'm sharing that this is my perspective and this is
Yeah,
my journey. Um,
absolutely.
so I'm just honoring that. The first thing is I have to be grateful for my parents and country of birth because my parents instilled in me from a very early stage. Um, I'm going to speak a little bit of Jamaican parlance. Nobody no better than you.
Hey.
So there's no one that's no one's that's better or greater than you, regardless of title, status in life, wealth, whatever. We are all equal. And that's what my parents really instilled in me from a very young age. And that was so important because it also meant that from the cleaner to the prime minister, treat everyone with respect.
Mhm.
Treat everyone with respect. So because they instilled in me that matter of you can be equally great, then I started to feel some boldness and greatness, yeah? But then the world, you go into the world and you realize that not everybody thinks as highly of you as your parents.
That's
So
right.
you get the knockbacks. And that's where my faith comes in. Because I'm a believer, I'm a Christian, and part of my faith is recognizing that there is also a power greater than me that also helps me. And that regardless of the knockbacks in life, it's okay.
Mhm.
We can wheel and come again. Another Jamaican term, meaning
I need to
there's
listen.
always
I
an
need some
opportunity.
Jamaican music playing during this episode. Yes, yes, I'm picking up what you're putting down, and we're going to translate, audience. We're going to translate along the way.
We will. So the wheel and come again is even when you're knocked down, you can have an opportunity to get back up again. Now, let's be careful. We don't have to jump back up because quickly, because sometimes we need to take a minute to get our
That's
feet
right.
back on. So it's okay to be able to get knocked back, but then also have the comeback. That's okay. So my parents and culture around this matter of being confident that you are equally great, just as everyone else. My faith, grounding to know that despite the setbacks in life, I can rise again.
Mhm.
And then the third element is curiosity, always being open to learning. Because what I recognize is that, yes, I can be confident. Yes, I know a lot, but I don't know everything. And I'm going to make mistakes. So if I recognize that I am fallible. I can make mistakes, and it is okay because it's part of the journey. Then I won't be afraid to make mistakes.
Mm,
Because when you take risk and you make the mistakes, you learn and you learn quickly.
Yeah.
And so that's where my confidence comes from. It's the confidence from my culture and my parents, it's my faith, and then it's the curiosity of being open to learn, to make mistakes, learn from those mistakes, and just keep rising because I can always come back again. I'm the comeback queen, I'm the comeback girl.
That is that is awesome. I've heard the phrase fail forward, reframing how we think about failure because failure or fear of failure can keep you stuck. But if you reframe it
Absolutely.
as that opportunity to consistently learn and grow and try again, then it can really help you to soar in your career. So
Absolutely.
speaking of your career in soaring, what are some resources that you have found to be game changing or really helpful in helping you to advance in your career?
I love that question because just so many resources. And when I think back, there was one key one. So, I'm now leading my own business, where I teach leaders and their teams about building resilience and navigating change and stress. But before I got there, I was at a critical point in my career, where I was thinking about what was next for me. Because I
Mhm.
was like, I feel like I've outgrown this space in the corporate world. I'm growing up the ranks, and I remember leaders in the business saying, "Oh, you've had a meteoric rise," and so I felt like I kind of got to the limit. It doesn't mean I'd gone all the way to the top, but I got to the limit of perhaps where my journey would have allowed me in that space to continue to grow, vertically or even, laterally to some extent. And so at that point, I was like, okay, what's next?
Mm.
And I remember my leader at the time introducing me to someone else who had taken a leap into a different industry. And they said to me, they gave me this spot of advice and they said, check out Strengths Finder.
Yeah.
And so Gallup, it's really initially written by Rath, but Gallup has that Strengths Finder, where it's a focus on what are your core strengths? Because you see, I had already had a journey where a lot of it was focused on the gaps, the weaknesses. Do this, do that. You haven't done this, you haven't done that. But here was this book now saying, no, let's focus on your core strengths because that's what's going to allow you to be elevated. And it was the best piece of advice. Once I was then able to look at my strengths and think about how can I lean into that, I was able to pivot into a career focused on project management because I was like, that's what I was always been good at. Yes, I love leading teams and so, but I'm very good at the process and the structure and all of this. I'm going to lean into my strength. And doing that allowed me to do some work in international development, which I always wanted to do. Um, g Gave me experience in rail, in public health, all these different experiences. And it was through that journey that allowed me to see that gap where so many leaders were burning out. And I said, I'm going to do something about that. So
Mm.
that pivot started with leaning into my strengths. So if there's one resource that I would recommend, it's that Strengths Finder.
Yeah.
Understand what your key strengths are and lean into them because they will help to propel you. It might not be immediate, but
Yeah.
it will help to propel you into that journey of success that is really aligned with who you are.
I love that. I remember when I was in corporate and they did that. They did the Strength Finder, and I thought it was such an interesting concept because many times you go into your review and you're hearing about your opportunity or weaknesses, and
Yes.
now there was this concept about your strengths and really looking at that. I believe there's something else called VIA, which is character strength as well. And I also thought about Kai-Nneka. For me, I did a natural aptitude test. So similar with the journey, thinking about exiting corporate America, I did a natural aptitude test to see what I am naturally good at. And so
Mm.
there's a company called Johnson O'Connor Research Foundation, and they do a natural aptitude test. And I will share with the audience. If you've been with me since day one, you've heard me say this before. So I'm repeating it though. I scored really high at ideas. And when I tell my best friend an idea, she's like, "That's a great idea." I'm like, "Yeah." And then I always say, "That's my natural aptitude. I can come up with some great ideas." So I love that you brought up the Strength Finder in as a resource in the interview.
Beautiful. And as you talk about the natural aptitude, that definitely is in line with it.
Yeah, yeah.
What really is your natural inclination? Let's work with that and strengthen that.
Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. So I always have a good idea for you. Okay, so if you were to write a book about your career body of work, what do you think the title of the book would be?
Oh my gosh, I've got to think about that one. Oh my gosh. There's just always this combination in my mind about, yeah, I spoke earlier about you know, leading without being able to work and lead without losing yourself, and this whole matter of being able to rise again. So I think if I was to try and tie that all together, um, hmm, there'd be something about But something about rising again. I don't want to steal, still I rise.
Oh,
I don't want to steal that one. So I think it would be about rising again, or no, this is it. It's redefining success and leading boldly without losing yourself. So I think
whew,
that's what I would say.
that sounds like an article and a book. We're ready for it. So you
Um,
gotta start writing it. I love that. It's so true.
so
Oh
I'll
my.
say that again because it took me a long time to get there. It's
Oh,
redefining success, so leading boldly without losing yourself.
yeah. Even the
Yeah.
last part, leading boldly without losing yourself. The secrets of resilience and I'm down the road.
Yes, come on. We're co-creating here. We're co-creating here.
That's right. That's right. I see this manifesting, you know. These conversations fuel me and inspire me because it's such a pleasure to hear about your journey and learn more about your why. And so tell our listeners if they would like to stay connected with you,
Yeah.
how they can do so after this episode.
Oh, absolutely. I You can find me on LinkedIn. So Kai-Nneka Townsend is the name. That's the best place to connect with me. And I'll share with Simone my LinkedIn. I'll also share my website. So I am always doing work around career, but linked to this whole matter of resilience because I strongly believe that you can have success without burning out. So success does not have to be defined by being burnt out. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's exactly what I believe. So that's the work I do. And if you want to find out more about how you can achieve career success without burning out, then you can connect with me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, again, it's been so delightful to have a conversation with you about culture and career and resilience and all the good stuff. So thank you so much, Kai-Nneka Townsend, for being a guest on the Power of Owning Your Career podcast.
Thank you. It was lovely to be here.
You're welcome. That's it for today's empowering episode. I'm Simone E. Morris, and I want you to remember that you are indeed the architect of your career. Share this episode if it sparked something in you. Subscribe wherever you listen, and find more resources at SimoneMorrisEnterprises.org. Keep practicing career ownership, and I'll be right here with you next week for more transformation.